Are we recording? Is this thing on?
Yes, it is. Welcome to RevOps 500, where we invite the world's top marketers to answer the tough questions facing growing organizations.
Ooh, sounds important.
I'm Sajeel Qureshi.
And I'm Gil Bates. Join us as we dive deep into the world of RevOps.
We'll be learning strategies and expertise from firsthand experience. RevOps 500 is sponsored by Computan. They provide technical and development expertise to growth-focused marketing teams.
Let's get started.
Sajeel Qureshi here with another episode of RevOps 500, where we interview some of the world's greatest and smartest B2B marketers around. I know, Caleb, you're laughing about that, but that's okay. Today, I'm really excited to be talking to a HubSpot superstar, someone who actually works for one of the coolest HubSpot apps around. And he used to work at HubSpot helping agencies as a CAM and has spent around like half a decade in channel sales and account management. Also, fun fact is he also worked at Tesla, but right now you could find him as a rock star account executive at Super. Caleb King, welcome to RevOps 500, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's get right into it. Caleb, what is one RevOps myth that you can share with our listeners?
One RevOps myth is that I know what RevOps is.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean it's a myth that you know what it is? Like,
No,
you know.
I'm kind of being tongue in cheek. One RevOps myth that I would say is that anyone knows what RevOps is, or that anyone actually has a definition for RevOps. It's one of those things where it has been buzzing for a couple of years. We're still in the hype phase of it. And I'm not saying it's fake, it's real. It is a real thing, but it is hard to put your finger on it. There are definitions. I myself have written out definitions also, but I seem to forget them over and over. And I've read definitions. In fact, today on LinkedIn, I read a definition that I nodded firmly on. I'm like, yeah, that is what RevOps is. But I'm not saying as a bad thing. I'm not saying it's faking. I'm just saying RevOps is one of those terms or one of those ideas that is just like, when you smell it, you know it's it. Or when you see it, you know it's it. But it's hard to just say, like, this is a singular one-line definition of what it is. And there are other words like that too, that I think, like, go-to-market is a word like that. Strategic is a word like that. When you see it, you know it's that.
Okay, so let's go on that. So what you're saying is a myth is you don't know what RevOps is, and not many people do. But it's just kind of like it's just something you know it when you see it. So what is an example of RevOps that you have seen and you said, you know what, that's RevOps? I mean, like what is when have you seen it?
That's a great question. So anytime because like my day-to-day, right, is sales. I was in sales, Tesla, HubSpot here. And so I firmly look at things from a salesperson's perspective, not because I want to, but because I have to. That is my day-to-day. So for example, at Super, right, we're this fast-growing startup, but there are not a lot of processes in place because it was founder-led, then founder plus one AE, now founder plus three AEs. So we are literally selling and building the processes at the same time. So what is something that when I smell it or when I see it or when I build it myself, I'm like, oh, this is RevOps. It's like, okay, how do I actually choose who to target? And then how do I translate that into our system, which is HubSpot CRM plus LinkedIn plus Surf, And that then is like, the idea is, how do I find more people that I want to talk to and talk to them? And then there's like, oh, but when I'm actually doing this day to day, what does that mean for my system and my process? And me setting up a target account list, creating a property that's a tier one property of target account, translating that into the target account view in HubSpot, thinking about what the reporting looks like to figure out if we're successful on that. How do I use LinkedIn Sales Nav? How do I use LinkedIn? So that's one thing. Even that explanation took like 5 minutes, and you're probably like, "What are you talking about?" So it's hard to encapsulate. But when I have an end goal as a salesperson, I'm doing it, and then I'm like, "Wait, no one's told me how to do this. I got to figure it out, and then build it into the tools or tech stack." That to me smells like what's like RevOps, and I'm like, "Oh, that's why this thing exists."
Okay, so that's kind of like so you're looking at it from a sales angle because you're an AE. I mean, your job is biz devs, lead gen, interest, those sorts of things. Now, when you're in a place like Supered, how does that how will that translate on the other sides with like marketing, customer success, and making sure that customers become like evangelists and stuff like that? You know, at a startup, it's very different because, you know, like you said, you're building the process as it's happening, as you're doing business, right? So what is that like? I mean, the other two ends of it.
So it's actually kind of cool. I'll speak most directly because at Supered, our go-to-market strategy is a little bit different. We call it surround bound. So everyone is marketing. Everyone is marketing. Like we are all marketers,
Yeah.
but there's one person, DM, who's in charge of it, right? But I can speak most directly to the service side or the success side because never at a company have I felt more close to net revenue retention because I've always been getting new and then we hand them off and it's like their problem. But if we are trying to hit our goals as a company, which is this year 3 million annual recurring revenue, then 10 mil, then 100 mil, like I cannot ignore if this bucket is leaky, right? Because that directly impacts the team's goal. So if we're churning, 10,000 a month and I'm bringing in 12,000 a month, like I can't ignore that, right? And so what does it look like at Super? Then we are setting up processes, right? For how do I properly in the sales cycle, how do I properly collect the information, set the expectations, and then set up the handoff to service, and you stay involved in that process when needed. And then on the back end, this would actually be more sales ops, but it still falls under the umbrella of RevOps of like, okay, then how do we build into the numbers of like, if they upgrade or if they upgrade in X months, like, does that affect sales numbers? Does that affect services NRR retention numbers? Right. So that all kind of, I think about all that under the larger umbrella of RevOps as well. Maybe that's a mistake because some people might say that's sales ops, that's service ops, that's marketing ops, but I feel like it's all revenue.
Yeah.
It's all revenue.
So that's got to be hard though, because, you know, you've like, you know, you've done account management, accounts, you know, account executive, and now you're trying to, like you said, you can't ignore that bucket is leaking. You know, if churn is happening and, you know, you're bringing in 12,000 a month and 10,000 months going out the door because customers are upset. How do you learn that skill? Because, you know, you're always so used to like, okay, I'm bringing the revenue in, and now I'm going to go find more revenue the next month. You know, you've got your quota, you're trying to
Yeah.
get your deals done. You know, how do you go from like a big corporate, like a, you know, bureaucracy? I'm saying bureaucracy is like not a bad term, but a much more stable and structured environment like a HubSpot or Tesla or all these other places you've been. Now you come to Super, and, you know, you can't just hand off to somebody else. Okay, your thing now, not my problem. You handle it. How do you learn customer success at the same time when you got numbers to hit, you know, and keeping the lights on?
You just do it. I have,
Nike.
right? You just do it. It's hard, right? Like I've got to think about. I thought I had a lot of things to think about before. Now I have 3 times more things. But um, that's why you just got to make a decision. Like if you want to work for a small company, is there enough is there enough reward for the risk? And for me personally, I'm only like 2 months in, but like it's rewarding for me because I feel ownership of this business. I'm not the owner, but
Yeah.
I feel ownership of it. Like, and so I like that. I feel like my acumen as a business person, rather than just like a sales mercenary, is increasing. And that is like exciting for me from a personal development standpoint because now I see I want to become better. If I can understand business better, then I'll be better at anything that I do.
So it's more like a necessity is the mother of innovation type of a thing, right? Where, you know, you have to do this because, you know, there is no one else to to pass it on to, right? You know, you know, this is someone that, you know, you sat with them, you got their trust, you got them to use Super. Now you want to make sure, and if they have a problem with it, there's really no one else they can. I mean, there must be other people they can talk to, but, you know, they're probably gonna talk to you because you're the one that brought them into the fold, right? So you feel ownership over it that way, which is interesting.
Yeah.
That's a cool perspective.
And like one of the cool things about Super is Matt's kind of go-to-market strategy, he hired more customer success or partner success people before he hired salespeople. So it's kind of flipping the SaaS model upside down. So we had 3 PSMs when there was only 1 salesperson. Now we're even. But the way that I think about it is really interesting is like at a established company, a large corporate company, there are swim lanes, and we just say the thing you say is that's not my job. This is my
Yeah.
job. That's not my job. At a You can still say that. Like sometimes I do things I'm like, that's not my job. Like someone, but but why am I saying that now when there are 11 of us, right? Like if I say that's not my job, who is that helping? It is just hurting everyone, right? And so that's what I mean when there's like ownership and commitment to the rising of this entire company, which will benefit us. Um, but there is there are swim lanes, but they're more, I think about it, they're more specialties. There's definitely people that are specializing in marketing, customer success, developers, and then salespeople, but it's
Absolutely.
not like that's not my job. I only do this. It's like this is my specialty, but we're trying to get this thing to rise. Everyone's trying to get this thing to rise.
So you guys are working kind of as one team working together on building out these systems, and that's kind of how the necessity of mother of innovation helps. So it sounds like you're kind of in the thick of building up like a sort of like a RevOps system, right? Where okay, this is what good customer success looks like. This is what good sales is looking like. This is what the handoff looks like between marketing and sales, and when keeping a happy customer, turning them into like a into support or someone who can refer new people to the team or to the company. So what's that process like right now? I mean, like, is it something you guys talk about weekly, daily, hourly? I mean, is it like something you set time up for when you're building up a RevOps engine like this? Give us the view from the ground floor.
Um, it is it's hard to answer that because there some people on our team are very good at being proactive about it, personality wise. I don't know. They're doing the right thing. They're like thinking about the system and like, all right, we're gonna build this first and then like back here. So some beautiful, views, some dashboards, uh, some people, I'm kind of in the middle. Some people are just like, speed is so important to us that even though we know this is important, I'm not going to waste any time doing this until it becomes unbearably painful without it, without this view or without this dashboard, without this process. And personality wise, and coming from HubSpot and working with RevOps agencies, I was always firmly like, no, you need the process. You need this setup, or else everything else is broke. Like it's
Yeah.
not going to work. Nothing's going to fit in. You're going to have bad data. You have no reporting. And yes, I agree with that, Sajeel. And maybe some people listening to this will hate me for saying this, but now that I'm in a high growth startup, I see the truth that like, no, actually speed is the top priority. Like
Okay.
get the customer, get the XYZ, do the thing, and then it will become so painful that you need a process behind it. Um, and so the truth probably lives in the middle. There are people have to, pull from both sides, but when you're in it, and trying to grow this and trying like speed becomes a very real thing to where an operating principle that's rises to the top is just like until it becomes painful, I'm going to keep doing this because then it'll be a good problem when it's painful because it means I have the meat to put into the whatever form.
It's funny you talk about that, Caleb, and it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, for example, look at companies that have HR departments. You wouldn't think of like a startup as a company that has an HR department, but when it becomes so unbearable, like recruiting and hiring and policies and stuff like that, when they become so unbearable trying to do it without one, that's when you go and make that first HR hire, right? And that's like the typical process sort of department and typical corporate structures, corporate America anyway. Like, you get that. Oh, once you get an HR department in there, then you got policy structure. You can't just, it's not just like a free for all, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of going to think. So you kind of grown out of so it's almost like, you grow into that sort of a need. So what you're saying is that kind of where it's at? Like, you're saying that we're 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 a startup. We're on the ground level trying to build up our revenue, our business, our identity, and our process all at the same time. At the same time, but we will grow into some of these processes when it becomes unbearable. We have too many leads, then we go get a CRM, or we get like a customer acquisition strategy, right? When we have customers to acquire and we've done it, and all those sorts of things, right? Is that kind
Yeah,
of how it is, or?
kind of. I'll give I'll give a very tangible example from that you just made me think of. So we use Slack internally, and so someone, probably Matt, set up a Slack notification for when someone visits our pricing page on our website, right? I actually don't know how it works. It's probably through HubSpot plus Slack plus tracking code, right?
Mhm.
So we get this notification, it goes into our revenue channel. Now, to be clear, our revenue channel is marketing, sales, and service. So it's not like it's like that's how we think. I love that we call it revenue. It's everyone, right?
Yeah.
Get a notification, hey, pricing page visit. Someone looked into it. Matt, our CEO, asked me and Blake and Chris are like, all right, what's the process behind this? And come with your recommendation. How are we going to handle this? Like, he's like, just go. And then my recommendation is like, there's no process. Whoever sees this replies in the thread first, I got this. And then that person is responsible for following up, making sure you get a yes or no. Do you want to meet? Everyone else who sees it, connects with them on LinkedIn, kind of supports, but you do need one person to just be like, I'm going to take the lead. I'm going to set tasks for myself. I'm going to stay on top of this. And that's my recommendation. Now, Sajeel, hearing that, like, that is a bad scalable, as not scalable. But we're like, Matt at the end, he was like, okay, that's gonna be painful eventually and not sustainable, but I'm fine with that for now. And so that's a good example of where I'm just like, yes, this isn't scalable, but I'm not gonna spend half my day thinking about it or my entire day thinking about it and iterating it when we have one potential lead. Like, let's just go, see how many meetings we book, and then when it becomes painful, we can very easily figure out how to rotate this, right? But the main questions are the main questions. Is this person is interested? Is someone making it easy for them to talk to us fast? That's the only question I care about, right? And then we can think about all the things after. But unless we answer that question, is someone from Super making it easy for someone to book a time and talk to us fast, then why even talk about the other stuff? And that's like a good example.
Okay, so it's a really good example. Obviously, it is like a very RevOpsy sort of thing, right? There's someone on the pricing page. You want them to talk to a human being right away, so you set up a system, whatever system it is, right? It's a Slack notification that goes in, and someone just has to jump in and give that person the TLC, tender loving care to, hey, you're on the pricing page. Is there something I can do for you? Do you want to talk? It's like when someone walks into a retail shop, right? And you're like, oh, someone's walked in, you at least greet them. Same idea. Scalable, not scalable. I mean, it's up for debate, but yeah, it is there. So, like, let's talk about something like that, or even something related to that technically. Like, I mean, what kind of technical things in this, at Super keep you up at night? It's new. It's very, very, it's in its infancies, right? So I mean, when you're building up like this alignment between your customer success people, your CSMs, and and you guys in revenue, what are some of the technical pain points on there in terms of like what you're doing with that stuff?
Technical in terms of our internal tech stack or our Super the prop?
No, in terms of your internal tech stack, like building out this RevOps, like these processes and things like that.
Um, Frankly, very little of that keeps me up.
I mean,
Because at that,
you're a relaxed, easygoing guy. I know that. I mean, like, it doesn't keep you up at
well,
night, but what keep Matt or the rest of the team up at night then? Maybe.
um, I think that, because if I think about RevOps, I think about like the HubSpot admin or like the CRM admin, which is a very real thing and very important. But like, um, I feel ownership of all of that, but I don't feel it's just my perspective, right? So like, what do I feel the burden for? I feel the burden for increasing top line revenue for Super however we can, because that's my specialty. That's what I came
Yes.
on to do. And does the technical setup impact that? Yes. Have I had suggestions and actually built dashboards and processes and documented things myself as I'm doing them? Yes, because I know they will help other people increase top line revenue, which is what I'm here to do, right? But as far as like thinking about the architecture, like I don't think about that because we have a lot of better people on my team to do that who have actually been partners in HubSpot admins. Um, so I just don't feel a responsibility for that.
Mhm.
Now, I do want to be clear here, like, is this the right way to do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is
Who
this the way
does?
we are doing it as a bootstrapped 10-person startup? Yes. If we were venture funded, would we have a full-time RevOps person or hire a RevOps agency? That would be the right thing to do. But we made a clear decision to stay bootstrapped because of the whole, that's our strategy. And so it's just the reality that we have to live in right now.
That makes sense. I mean, like, you've got very little, in terms of like resource, in terms of like, it's a startup. Startups are typically, especially ones that are not funded, right? They're bootstrapped. They're just kind of, getting their wings to fly more or less. And when you don't have that, it's hard to think about everything because you get overwhelmed. Right?
Yeah.
So now, okay, let's talk about maybe something that you have maybe seen that some of your end users struggle with, like super users who are also usually HubSpot admins, partners, those sorts of things. What are things that maybe you've seen them struggle with from a systems and processes standpoint?
I mean, I think one of the biggest thing, so like our primary audience, our primary target customer right now is HubSpot partners, right?
Right.
Um, we do sell to end users, and eventually that will be our total addressable market. But we made a decision to go to market just among HubSpot partners first. It's our strategy, partner first. Okay, so the question that you asked, what are some of the pain points that they struggle with and they deal with end users? Um, is this the larger word would be adoption, right? But what does that actually mean? It means like one of the big premises that we build on is like, since we're so HubSpot biased, at least I come from a world where I'm HubSpot biased, and I've worked at HubSpot. It's like, let's shoehorn everything into HubSpot, right? Let's make sure everything has orange on it, every process. But at the end of the day, even HubSpot itself does not live just in HubSpot, right? So I think that's one core thing that we have to realize and be okay with. And be like, yes, crafted, not coddled is very real. However, it's not about getting people to adopt our tool, our app. It's about helping businesses operationalize their process. And is our app or is our service helping them do that? And so that's why, like, what Super is built on is like, hey, we're giving partners or service providers a tool to be able to span apps, span tools, Gmail, LinkedIn, Monday.com, whatever, ClickUp, HubSpot, Salesforce, Dynamics, like, because none of their processes is just going to exist in one application. So if you are a consultant helping them build processes, you know that there's a the ERP included. You know that there's an email client included. You know all these things. So the cool thing that Super is building is like, hey, we're doing it across apps. The pain is just trying to solve for one thing. The solution is like, how can we teach and train and enable across all the software stack that they need for their specific process?
Yeah, and using a tool like that where it does help people walk through different steps on how to do things or how to get things done, like Super can do, it probably even helps them adoption in their own RevOps world, right? Because every business has different steps. What customer success is, what sales is. Sales has to do this part, marketing has to do this part. These are all steps, right? Steps and communication needs to happen. So, I mean, do you see people like partners adopting Super to do those sorts of things, especially when, like, newcomers come onto the team and stuff like that? Like, it's more like the assimilation into the processes and stuff like that of those partners and agencies.
Yeah, I think the good ones for sure. They come to a customer or internally even. They say like, okay, where are people living right now? Do we need to change that or not? Right? Because there is a very real question. Is there a better tool for this? Do you need to be living out of 3 tools or 1? Okay, great. If it's truly better, let's live out of 1 or 2. But then not just like, I think it's always a difficult when you're trying to impose something on someone. And maybe we need to come to a point where we're like, yes, there's a point where we make recommendations. Yes, maybe HubSpot can pull in your service and marketing and sales, ideally. But then at a point, we just need to think, all right, what is your flow process? What's the best tool for this? And we can live with 5 tools. We can live with 4 tools as opposed to 35, right? But there still will be more. And so the best partners, I think, realize that. And then that's kind of what we built for is like, okay, now that you've applied your expertise, how do you operationalize that? And Super is simply the conduit. We're the pathway. We're not saying, hey, look at Super, we're pink, we have a lightning bolt, look at us. Like, that's actually not what we want to do. What we want to do is like make these partners better. And so they're the ones delivering value. We're just the conduit to do it.
You're a pretty interesting guy, Caleb. I mean, and I mean that in a complimentary way. But like, like, where did like this interest in like account management sales, where did it come from? I mean, like, where does that? I mean, it seems like you're like genuinely interested in this stuff. I mean, most people say, oh, I got knocked into this somehow or whatever. But where did that come from exactly?
Uh, my interest in sales or my interest in HubSpot partners?
Well, I mean both. I mean both. I mean, you're trying to help them, right? You're trying to help them with a product, right? I mean, if it's not this one, it'd be something else. But you have a passion for HubSpot partners, those sorts of things. I mean, where does that? Where did all this stem from? I guess
I did get knocked into it.
you got knocked into it.
I did get
Right.
knocked into it. And then
How?
the
Where?
passion,
Why? Who did it?
yeah, and the passion has developed, right? So I've been thinking about this phrase, right? Motivation or excitement is a luxury.
Hmm.
We think a lot of times people are like, you got to follow your passion. You got to be passionate about it. They'll bleed through it. Like, what's the most important for a salesperson? You got to be passionate. I have been so unpassionate about my job for so many years and so many different companies, right? So I realize when something does like, no, this is a pain and this is something, an actual software that solves the pain or an actual person out of help, you've got to stoke that fire, right? Because you don't know when it's going to go out. So you've got to rely on that passion, stoke it, feed it, right? And so part of it is the problem that we're solving right now. Part of it is the person or persona we're solving it for, who I've worked with for the past couple of years. I feel close to them because I've seen the business pain of services companies. And part of it is just like the culture that I'm in at Super. There's excitement of my colleagues that rubs off on me, right? And then when I see that, like I know I've got to protect it, right? But to give you the backstory, I kind of, the shortest version is I was introduced into sales in college. I was a door-to-door salesman. I hated it. I never recommend anyone do it, but good things came from it. Mainly the fact that I'm extremely confident that I can do very hard things that few other people can do, which is a good thing for a salesperson to have. Now, but I don't recommend anyone do it. So I door-to-door salesperson, went and traveled for a number of years. I went to New Zealand, went to Taiwan, developed myself, came back to America with my lovely wife, Nicole, and said, I need to make money. I've been traveling for 10 years or 8 years. Who will hire me? And I need to make enough money to support us, if not more children, if they, and so sales was a logical first step. And then I just kind of like sales, different companies, got really lucky, landed at HubSpot, got introduced to partners, stayed at HubSpot for 3 years as a came to Super. And now I'm excited because I know the problem. Super has a really good solution. And I'm just excited about software. I like software. So I did get knocked into it.
So and necessity being the mother of innovation again, right? I mean, same sort of thing. So let's talk a bit about that now. You mentioned you got knocked into it. I know you were abroad for a while. I think you were doing language teaching, right? So I mean, how now? Let's take a product like Super, or even what we've been talking about now, like RevOps or whatever. Like if you had the knowledge that you have now of, like, processes, customer success, sales, marketing, and you were working with like a language speaking institution, how would you do it differently? Because I'm guessing they didn't have much of a RevOps operation or organized structure like that either, right?
No.
You're shaking your head. So, like, I mean, what could they learn from Caleb now that they didn't get from Caleb, say maybe 10 years ago or something like that, 5 years ago, whatever it was?
That's a great question. And I'm on the fence um, of what I would say. Because I don't, it's not, I want to be clear, this is not advice. This is just thoughts, right? I'm not a
Yeah, yeah,
guru.
yeah. No, we're just jamming here. Yeah, yeah, of course.
I would say to them, fix the main problems first. Like, fix your business problems first. Yes, you can download a free CRM, and actually, you probably should, because that's very low lift. Download the free HubSpot CRM. That way, you know what students are students, you know what families are families, you know who you want to target. But like, some of these smaller businesses, it's just like, I don't want to, I'm only going to say fix the main things first. The main things are, do you have enough income coming in? Sales. If you don't, focus on that. The very next question is, is the income that is coming in retained? If it is not, fix that. And then you can think about everything else. But it goes along kind of that start mentality of like, fix the main things first. Is there money coming in? Are we keeping this money? And then we'll think about everything else. But it's not exclusive. Like, you can and should probably have like a free CRM while you're doing that, because it will help you get more income and retain income. So sorry
Yeah.
for everyone else Sorry for former self when I was selling HubSpot. That hates me for saying that.
So now, where do you see the future of all this stuff going? I mean, you see apps like, Supered and things like that make it easier to connect the dots and make apps. You talk about Super being the conduit between HubSpot and other applications. Where do
Yeah.
you see the future of that industry or RevOps or these things heading? Like, do you have any sort of crystal ball that you can kind of look into, or where do you see things going?
I think that the future, the present and the future, I think is people. People. Uh,
People?
and I don't know if that would change. I hope it never changes. Um, Sajeel, if you are a partner, if you are a partner, but if any partner sees Superbird and what it does, it's sexy. It's like, holy smoke, that is a magic trick. How did you do that? It's like the first time I saw HubSpot sequences, I was like, that's sexy, that's cool, right? But it doesn't work if there's not a person behind it thinking critically, right? The software is never going to solve a business problem in a meaningful way. So if I see the future, there are millions of softwares out there. There are millions more that will come out, right? And all of them will be useful. And some of them you'll see them and be like, "Well, that's sexy. That's cool." Super is like that. But there has to be a person or people behind it driving the strategy, driving how are we going to change our business with this competitive advantage. And that's very much how I feel about Super. Super is a competitive advantage until it's not, until the market is saturated. But that's not a problem, because if I'm preaching that, like, this is the conduit, you are the competitive advantage. You're the how fast, how early, how transformative you allow this to be for your go-to-market strategy, that is the competitive advantage, and that will not go away because you will adapt. That's the future that I see, and I hope that's always the future. The future belongs, I won't say belongs to, but the future is like some people get lucky. We all get lucky. However, you can control how critically you're thinking about the problem you're solving and how much you're foreseeing. So if you're just thinking like something's going to solve my problem, HubSpot is going to solve all my problem, my data problems, it's not. It's going to make them worse. However, if you're critically thinking about how you're using it, if you're critically thinking about how you're using Super to transform your services business and change how you go to market and deliver, that's the future, I think, and I hope it will always be like that. It's it belongs to people who are proactively thinking, changing, adopting. Um, that's the principle.
So you think most people will say that AI or some sort of stuff like that is the future. You're more thinking it's going to be more of a future going to look more like a lot like the present, where people are going to drive change, innovation, adaptation, those sorts of things. Is that kind of where you're going with that, or?
I hope that's my prayer, right? Like, but all of our technology is kind of AI. Technology is AI. It's just we put a name on it, right? So, um, I I pray and hope AI does not take over critical thinking. That's what's uniquely human, right? So yes, to answer your question, yes, like the technology is going to keep on getting better. We are making the technology so we can stop it from getting better, or we can continue to ask the question: what is human? What is human? What is better about us than these machines that we're making? And I think that ultimately is again, I want humans to be the driver still. That is true.
Yeah, so I mean, like it's say let's talk about super in the future, maybe, right? Maybe humans are not the ones writing those cards out, right? Maybe maybe it is an AI bot that is doing it, but somebody, a human perhaps, is orchestrating what cards to put where and why cards need to be there in the first place and between which platforms, and making the decision about which platforms there are. Something like that. Is that probably pretty accurate, or?
Yeah, and I'd even take it a step further. It's like, okay, that's like the day to day, how we're actually implementing and
Mm,
transacting and actually delivering it. But then the human element still is like, if you're working at that business or that partner who is using Super to deliver a better client experience for your customer, how are you transform? Like, how are you then, as AI or Super evolves or whatever? Then how are you positioning yourself and making your business valuable? Um, I mean, Google Translate has existed for years, right? But it hasn't taken over the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, there still has to be someone thinking bigger and thinking like, okay, everything that humans used to do, now machines do. But there's always going to be a gap in value that a human has to think about, and that's not one.
absolutely. That makes total sense. So, we've been talking about Super a lot, but for anybody who doesn't know anything about it, why don't you give us a little rundown about what Super it is and what you do there, and everything else?
Yeah. God, Sajeel, it's so hard to explain software. Right? It's so hard to explain software unless you've felt the pain before, and then you're like, oh, I get it. All right.
Yeah.
Supered um, is a software, an app. The end user experiences that as a floating Chrome extension that helps whatever software you're using uh, become easier and better to use, right? And so the end user, whatever their process is, whatever software they're using, Super, you experience it as a floating Chrome extension wherever you are, guiding you and telling you how to use this so that you can get to your end goal. We sell to end users directly, and usually like an admin would do that, but we're going to market with partners. So what is Super for partners? It allows partners to create those experiences for their customers, which is ultimately, when you're a services company, you're in the business of creating a great experience for your customer. So Super is a conduit that allows you to create that and say like, hey, it is Computon that you are like, your experience is great. This Computon has guided you through these processes. So that's a very vague answer, but that's what it is.
It's kind of like a wizard, isn't it? I mean, like in a way where it's like, you know, you're building customized wizards for people to use on their daily life. I mean, if you ever bought like a device, like a Google device, and try to set up like a Nest Home or a phone app, I'll tell you,
Right.
go to the phone app, put this thing in, now go here, now go there. But you're doing it for your daily life without programmers' help. You know, it's like a Chrome extension. You can create your, you know, yeah, you can create your wizards for your clients, for your team, to get through their day, get through their life, and adapt whatever needs to be adapted quicker.
Absolutely. Yeah. A wizard, work instructions, digital adoption platform, floating knowledge base. Like it's all these categories in one. But yes, it's a wizard.
Got it. All right. Well, you know, Caleb, this has been a lot of fun. You know, I learned a lot. I mean, you know, I mean, we have a good vibe together. Obviously, you know, it was great to, you know, hear you talk about, you know, how RevOps is on the ground floor. You know, when you're learning, and you know, you started off right away saying the myth is you didn't even know what it is. So I mean, like, you know, it's been great to have you on, and you know, I really appreciate you doing this with me.
Absolutely. And one day, Sajeel, I will interview you about how Computon started. You teased me with that you started with hotels. You're like, you know, IT provider for hotels, and you've grown to this. That's a fascinating story.
You know what? Yeah, you know, you can have me at any time, and you know, my pet dog might listen to it, right? Other than that, like yeah, I'd be happy to waste the internet hard drive space on that one. So that's a given. No problem with that.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, and anybody listening up there, if you liked it, you know, if you like Caleb, where can they get a hold of you? Where can people reach you?
LinkedIn, you know, Caleb King. Make sure it's my face. There are other Caleb Kings.
Yeah, a lot of Caleb Kings out there, right? So, so yeah. So I mean, anyways, like if you want to get a hold of Caleb, you know, head him up on LinkedIn. If you want to tell somebody about the episode, by all means, listeners, go ahead and do that. Caleb, again, thanks for coming on. This is it was great having you.
All right, man. Thanks so much.
This has been another episode of RevOps 500, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Take care.
And that wraps up another episode of RevOps 500. Thanks for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at revops500.com. RevOps 500 is sponsored by Computon, providing technical and development expertise to growth-focused marketing teams.